Hey, everybody, get on in the chat room here. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. It's Friday. Go ahead and click on that link. I'm going to put the first 4 guys who get on the chat. You're going to be on live with Al. And we're going to have to talk about a few things today outside of 3D printing. I think one of the things we have to talk about is Gina. We're going to talk about Gina. Yeah. We're live, guys. Come on in. Come on in. Probably a little delay overseas, but hey, we don't have to pay long distance charges when we do this. Now, do we? If you have an older phone and it's not been updated with the latest and greatest web browser, you may have a little trouble getting in on the action, maybe. Best way is with a laptop or a PC, guys, with the webcam. Been getting lots of comments today in the group, private messages on my thoughts on Gina. I got something to say. We're gonna get right down to the heart of the matter, and we're gonna talk about 3D printers. As many of you have been following my channel know, we have the 3D printers saga here in the studio, and we're going to talk about that. Should be pretty interesting. I want to hear about your 3D printer. All right. Get in on the live, guys. If you're having a problem getting your link to work, I don't know what to tell you. Let's do an invite. I'm going to throw a fresh invite up on the gamer group, guys. Here she goes. I'm putting her up. Boom. There's another link right underneath my name. If you're having any kind of troubles, there's another link in case you would need it. So far, gun barrel. So far, that's it's just you so far, bud. Now I actually have 2 watching now. You're one of 2. And we're gonna start talking about Gina first. We're gonna get that out of the way. Boom. We know that is on a lot of guys' minds. Let's face it, she's a hottie. She knows how to fight. She's been several shows, and she's been done wrong. God forbid we speak the truth, right? It might happen to make someone triggered. Pretty sad state of affairs, my friends. And most of you guys are historical wargamers, so I'm sure you follow history pretty closely. Hey, big chap. It gets you in the stream, my friend.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, not too bad. I've just been watching the impeachment stuff on one of my channels. There's a great dude out there. He's called PT News Network, and yeah. he does this like a live stream. I've just been watching that for the last couple of hours. But yeah, it was some of the videos that Trump's lawyers were playing were brilliant. I loved it. You know, it's like, oh yeah, finally get some truth in front of those guys. You know.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the money for the lawyers, that's for sure. But like George Carlin said once, God rest his soul, he said, when we're born in America, we have a front row seat to the circus.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Sad but true. Gets a few more people in. We got 2 viewers out there, and we will go ahead and get the podcast officially started. We're just gonna have to get Gina out of the chute right away. I'm sure a lot of guys want to talk about Gina.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It reminds me of the I said earlier on the thread. It reminded me of the French Revolution. It's not the French Revolution. It's the McCarthy. It's the McCarthy witch hunts reincarnated. You know?
Let them eat cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. For speaking the truth, apparently people don't listen to history, and making parallels to things that happened in the past to what's going on today, I guess, is taboo. But we know the heart of the matter was that she was a Trump supporter. She never hid that. Hey, John.
That's why she was banned. It wasn't anything to do with that post. It was because she was she didn't fit the current narrative. That's why she was banned.
Exactly. I mean, it's sad. She'll hopefully, and I'm sure she'll land on her feet, hit the ground running with something else. She's a good talent. She's smoking hot, and she knows how to fight.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and get the podcast started. We're about 3 minutes out. We can go ahead and start getting on our topics. We got looks like we got 5 watching the broadcast as of right now. I think the last time we did a live stream was it was during the Super Bowl, and we still ended up with 20 viewers, so that's not too bad. So yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off. Like I said, Dave, I'll just I'm going to pull her up now. Last night when I heard about this, no one was saying what she said. Everyone would say she said these awful things, and so I got on Google and I Googled it. So here's one of her tweets. It was from November 5th, 2020. So it was right before the election. No, I'm sorry, it'd be right after the election. She says, "We need to clean up the election process so we are not left feeling the way we do today. Put laws in place that protect us against voter fraud." Oh, God, we don't want to say that. "Investigate every state, film the counting, flush out the fake votes, require ID, make voter fraud end in 2020, and the final sentence, fix the system." Well, I can know that's one of the reasons she was banned. And let's scroll down and get to the heart of the matter, guys, which would be what's the most where is it? I'm trying to find it here. I'm on Newsweek. Newsweek was one of the first ones to post what she had actually said. And I'm on the page right now. I can't exactly see it. Here we go. Now, this was the bombshell that was recently on Twitter, and it reads, "Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children, because history is edited, because people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews and ultimately millions of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?" Wow, we don't want that to get out there. Wow. That would be sacrilege. So again, here we are, guys. We are being told to shut up and let's not say anything. Yeah, okay. That's what we got. It's warm under this rock. Gina from Mandalorian had to Google it. Got to Google it.
Alan, the first thing to say about that is that what she was saying wasn't about the Holocaust. she was talking about 1930s Germany.
Correct.
About 1936-35, which is way before World War II. And what she was talking about was the fact that the government in Germany turned the populace against the Jewish people, and it was, so because the BBC had a article, and they were saying it was because of the Holocaust, and horrendous Holocaust comment that she posted. She didn't post anything like that.
No.
She posted about nine, and the point she was trying to make was, exactly what everybody who is reasonable says, which is, if you don't understand history, you're destined to repeat it. And that's what she was trying to point out.
Correct.
So yeah,
it's really sad, and we're seeing this division, this stoking. If you are questioning the government, if you're questioning the powers that be, you're immediately demonized. We can't criticize the government, question their authority if they so have such authority. And it comes back down to a lot of what we're doing, guys, with the wargaming. A lot of the wargaming we're doing, historical wargaming, is really centered around fighting for either freedom or you're fighting over resources. And a lot of times you dig right down, even when they're fighting supposedly over resources, there's usually one side that feels they're fighting for their freedom. And here we go again. Here we go again. And, demonizing anyone who disagrees with you to the point where anyone that today is being called a Nazi is pretty ridiculous, because if we were really Nazis, or there were really Nazis, they would already have squashed these people. So,
yeah.
But usually it's the pot calling the kettle black. Usually we're dealing with the individual screaming Nazi are actually the Nazis.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he plays the Mandalorian, and he's posted some really bad stuff. Way worse than what Gina posted on online, and it's a double standard. The one thing I hate more than anything else on it's hypocrisy, and I hate, I really hate it. If you believe something, stand by it. And if you want to fire somebody for something, then fair enough, but don't just do it because it's somebody whose beliefs you don't agree with.
Correct. And I mean, we've I don't know what else to do other than sit back and watch it hopefully fizzle out, because these movements, we'll say, usually don't bear fruit in the long run, but they're so dug in. And the actor who in The Mandalorian, he Pedro Pascal, thanks John.
That's it, Pedro Pascal.
He is he's on the team, he's on their team, right? So like we said last broadcast, we were talking about the 55th, and Sun Tzu, Art of War, divide and conquer, guys. Yes, Luke. Yeah, we could have Luke. Luke could come in. Maybe we'll get Baby Yoda will get big and he'll become the new Mandalorian. I don't know. I really have not watched it.
I've not watched it either.
I'm boycotting Disney, so
yeah, me too. After The Last Jedi, that was it. I just cut it off. I'm not going to watch any more Star Wars after that. I enjoyed Rogue One. That was the last Star Wars film I enjoyed. But I've not watched any of the. I tell a lie. I downloaded the Rise of Skywalker, and that was just terrible. I couldn't believe how bad that was.
Yeah, they turned Luke into a wussy.
Yeah,
and he was a defeatist, which would not be in Luke's character. But I know we had Mark Hamill was not happy about that one bit. So
yeah, but he's another one who's like on Twitter. He's really he's kind of, if you've read any of his stuff on Twitter, he's yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say any more because
it all speaks for itself, and anyone with common sense, even though that's becoming a rare trait, can see through this stuff. And I don't know how the left can see that was fair in any way. So I guess we'll go ahead and move on to our main topic for the broadcast today, guys, and that is 3D printing. Who out there? Dave, I don't think you have a 3D printer yet, Dave. I know you're.
No, I'm not. No, I've always kind of hand sculpted my terrain, so I've always used Fimo or hand drying clay, or occasionally like a bit of oven clay. But I've never really, I've never used 3D print. I've got a few 3D printed pieces that I bought from eBay. I bought a few spaceships, I bought some gun stars from Last Starfighter 3D printed, and they were really good. Even though they were a very small scale, but they were really good stuff.
Yeah, I do some scratch building still with foam board, the thin poster cardboard. And what got me into that was last year on the channel was the Little Wars TV broadcasts, and then Steve from Little Wars TV did a whole series on 3D printers. Got another guy.
Right.
Let's add another guy to the stream here. Hey, Cyber, are you there?
Welcome to the channel. My name is Cyber, and Cyberpunk is coming out very, very soon, and every gamer out in the world is waiting for this. So let's.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we got bombed. So
yeah. So look at infomercial.
Get rid of that. So back to being inspired in my part was when Little Wars TV did their series, and what was interesting is he went into the resin printers, and on into the PLA, which is going to be the more common because of this question we have from Gun Barrel, I guess would be that. He's asking how safe is the 3D printer, and I'm going to say that he's referring to resin because he's asking about the fumes, and that's why I did not go that route. I was even thinking about putting in a ventilation over there by my build area, and the short answer is it's messy and it has some fumes. Now, some guys say the newer resin materials that they're coming out with are less fumy. In my situation, I can say that I'm in a basement and I cannot have my wife, who we also come into this office to work every morning, and I don't want her complaining about fumes. Right. So looks like we're getting some people in. I don't know if they're legit, guys. This is like my third podcast, so I guess we'll have to just start blocking people if they're not here to really have a chat. But to answer your question, Gun Barrel, yes, PLA is good. Now I've got this. I printed 4 of these yesterday, and you can see, I think my camera's pretty good quality. It can show you how there are some lining. Now I'm working on that. Now in my software, I can minimize that some. However, what it'll do is it'll make the prints take longer. So you're basically making the layers thinner. Yeah, I got my
is that salt?
I printed out my daughter. And
is that hot solid?
Oh yeah, it's just like the same material I would say that you're getting from your sprues from companies. This one I think I had on 20% infill, and then the huts they've got some nice weight to them, but this was another 20% infill. So it's like a waffle on the inside of this.
Okay. Right.
And you can increase that or decrease it depending on if you want something good and heavy. It's obviously going to use more PLA, and the the basically the print will take longer. So so those are the kind of things you weigh out. I've not had any prints. I printed this last night, and that's the Viking hut. And 0, I mean, it's just printed absolutely perfect. So yeah, I've got some stuff I've been firing off today for my upcoming Black Seas game, and yeah, I don't know. We've got
the print schematics from Alan. Have you gone? Because I looked online. There's like 3dterrain.com. Is it from somewhere like that?
No, I've been using Thingiverse, and Thingiverse is independent creators will put files on there free of charge. I've only had one file that really wasn't that great, and everything else has been perfect. And not great just means that it had just a few little little blank spots, little lines, but the printer duplicated that on every single print. And so that tells you it was on the file. This is, I don't know if you guys can see those little lines right there at the top of that's the worst that I've had. And that's just, I'm not even going to bother with that. Paint should probably fill that in. All right, let's see what this guy, we got another guy wanting to come in. Dove.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Duplace here, back with another Roblox video for you guys. So I apologize for not uploading any videos lately, but you know, I've been having some difficulties finding the time and quiet spaces to record because, you know, I live with a younger sibling, and yeah, it's just some stuff. I have some stuff going on. It's really hard, and it's kind of hard to stay up at nights. But you know, I'm back on the grind. We have 4 Omnitrixes. Omnitrixes, is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Omnitrice.
Okay. Well, apparently we got some people with some extra time on their hands out there. Don't kick me, I'm legit, he says. Yeah, okay, whatever. All right, so we'll get to some more of the comments here. I'm really liking the Giddy. I've got the Giddy website here. Mine is the entry level. It's X Maker commercial. Then they go up to the X Pro commercial, then the X Plus industrial, and the X Plus industrial and the X Max industrial. Those are the 4 printers that they manufacture. I know it can use extruded aluminum, right? So you can actually make aluminum parts with the thing. So it's pretty interesting, the technology. I would highly recommend sticking with an enclosed printer because it gives you a controlled environment. If you live somewhere that's, say, Western Australia, like Paul does, and you're running your AC and you like it cold, you have to be really cognizant of cold air or cool air blowing onto the print. It can screw it up because that PLA has to be at a specific cooling time, right? So you got to take that in consideration. I went by a couple recommendations. I got the Ender 3 Pro initially, and anybody that follows the channel knows that was just 2 days down the drain. And here's the thing, I think, and if you guys that are watching this are interested in getting into 3D printing, I think the big problem with that printer, the Ender 3 Pro versus the Giddy X Maker, is that the print bed on the Giddy's like this thick, solid aluminum, right? The one that came on the Ender was very thin. Get my finger go the right direction here. Very thin. And I think the printer I had a warped bed because I couldn't get it level, which means as that PLA is coming out of that nozzle, if it's got a low spot, the print won't stick, right? It'll start pulling off of the print bed, and you'll come down if you take a break and go up, away from the printer for 30 minutes. You'll come back. It'll be like a big tangled mess of spaghetti because it's basically just wildly printing. So the way that Giddy has solved this problem is that print bed is thicker. It's a little smaller. It's not going to be the printer for you if you want to do really large prints. But from my experience, it's not really necessary. You're going to be printing mostly, mostly small buildings and things. If you need to print giant models and you do need a large printer like that, Giddy has models that will print larger on larger surface, the next notch up from this. And there's other products out there that are not Giddy that are highly rated as Giddy, that have larger print areas and are in an enclosed print box. That would be my two big tips for you guys. I'm new, right? I'm no pro, but I can tell you in the last week, I have learned a lot just in a week. And I know that this Giddy is a total workhorse. I mean, I have been printing stuff for my upcoming Black Seas game, just back to back to back. It's right by my paint build area. I love hearing it run. I feel like I've got a robot making me stuff, right? So let's go down to some of the comments. We got John Eagles. John, probably one of my #1 subscribers over the years. Are you going to be printing parts for the Roman fort with the printer? No, I'm scratch building that. I'm total scratch build on that. If I were to print that fort, there are forts out there on Thingiverse. If you just want to play around, you don't have a 3D printer yet, just Google Thingiverse, get in the search tab and type fort, castle, and they'll make guys have prints on there that have little sections. You'll print the sections out, and on my print bed, I've already looked at one of the castle prints. I could print 4 wall sections at a time on the size of my print bed. So yeah, I mean, that's something you can definitely do. I mean, they've got some sweet castle prints on there where you print everything in sections. So again, a lot of these files that you can find on Thingiverse and other sites that may sell you prints, you can break them up into sections. So you'd have to print this big tower all in one shot. You really don't want that to have to store. So you'll take the file and you'll print that tower for a castle in like 3 sections. So you can change it up and mix it around. So yeah, so that's a good question. We got another one here. Gun Barrel. I like that name. So I bought some 3D printer Jag Tigers and they had the printing lines. I filed them down. What's the best route to go? I've been printing at a setting of 20 Gun Barrel. I may go down to 10. That's going to be in your software on the Giddy software on the right side. I can select the fineness of the print. Now, keep in mind, as you make those lines thinner, you will find that it's going to take the print longer. Now, some files you can scale. You can make them like that. Say that tank, you can make it a 15 millimeter tank, a 28 millimeter tank. And if you've got a bad file, whoever created that file, it may be that it just doesn't ever print right? Because I'm finding that, like with this ballerina, that's the creator that made this, who put it on Thingiverse. I'm finding other prints of his and they're amazing. I mean, they print, the lines are very minimal. So I would say the other thing to look at too is not adjusting the line thickness on your print. And maybe you've got a file that's just a bad print, as far as whoever created it didn't make the print properly. The other issue would be your scaling. Sometimes these prints, like this Viking hut, this is meant to print in 28 millimeter. And the creator has in the description below, he says, if you scale this down, it's going to have more graininess to it, right? Because it's built to be printed in 28 millimeter. So you got to think about that too. Yes, you can scale the models. Yes, I showed on the group the other day how I had made 2 different size forts for an island fortress, and the the models were very grainy as far as lines, and that tells me it's not that great of a print, right? So you got to look out for the free prints on Thingiverse. Most of them I've done have been amazing. They've been excellent prints, but I have had some that are a little liney and a little grainy, even when I scaled them up or I scaled them down. So you've got to keep that in mind.
Alan, what do you think the cost to print versus buying it from a retailer is? You know, if you factor in the materials, yeah.
Me being a business-minded guy, that was one of the first things I started to calculate. So let's say those huts, I just dropped my hut on the floor over here, but I did a calculation. I just did a rough, I took the amperage of the machine, and over the time of the prints, I printed 4 huts. Each hut took approximately 3.5 hours. I did a quick calculation on a current electric bill, and yeah,
okay.
I'm pretty thorough. And then I calculated the cost of the PLA, and I estimated pretty closely how much PLA I used off of the roll. Now, the roll of PLA, I am using the Hatchbox Gray on Amazon here in the US. It's $20 US. I calculated $1.50 per hut. Right?
Really? Wow.
$1.50 per hut. That's with now that's not my time. I'm doing other things while the print's going on, so I'm not sitting there watching it. But
well, yeah, you just leave it running, though, don't you?
You just leave it run, and when it's done, it beeps.
So cheap.
Once
I thought you were going to say about $10 or something. Oh, wow, that is really cheap.
Right, and the fact that you have this, so I have mine set up now, so I can come over here to this system, get on my software, play around with what I want to do with the print, and then I can send it Wi-Fi through the air to the printer, and then it asks me, do you want to print? And I say yes, and it just starts printing. So I don't even have to mess with the thumb drive anymore. I just send it over to the printer and it prints. And
wow. Okay.
It's got settings so that when it's done, you basically just go in, click on a couple of touchscreen buttons, and it starts another print. So it's like I said, it's like having a little robot behind me, making stuff. So
those guys on eBay selling those huts for like 20 quid are making a fortune.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to consider these guys are running what they call print farm. So they'll have a space in their home, or they'll have a workshop, and they'll run. Some of these guys I've chatted with, they're running 20 and 30 printers, right? So they're just cranking this stuff out. They buy the PLA by the case, and they really get the fine tuning down so the prints are going quicker. And yeah, so that's a good business if you can sell them. Now we got a new guy here on the chat, Rob of Historique. If you guys have never bought his markers, that's the infamous markers that got me banned from Facebook. But Rob, I'm gonna put him up here. He uses his 3D printer. Now he has a good experience with Ender. He's got an Ender 3. And he's doing fine with his. He, in fact, was nice enough to call me the night I was down in the dumps. I was getting ready to take a sledgehammer to my Ender 3 Pro. And he took the time to call me and give me some pointers. Yeah, but say hey to Rob, guys. He's a good guy. If you want combat markers and things like that, get on his website. Very reasonably priced, and he is making them now out of plastic. So, and it's a good experience all around, and it's helping a small business, right? So,
if you want to get banned from Facebook, contact Rob.
Yes, especially you have to get the swastika markers.
Yeah.
That's a critical thing. And as soon as you get them and you get them in your hands, put them all over social media. God forbid. So we got Big Dog saying he wants one for making terrain, and that was Big Dog. That's exactly the main reason I bought this printer. With my studio done, and every month we're planning new games, and I have about a 2-month lead time to start prepping for the game. It's going to help me. I still am going to scratch build some things like my Roman fort, just because I wanted to, because it looked interesting. But yeah, for like little huts and little doodads, like little wells and like farm animals, my printer is just going to crank that stuff out. And like what I did, I have ship cards I printed today. I printed, these are what you use, in Black Seas for doing your movements and firing from your ships. I'm printing up 4 of these, 1 for each player. I'm going to paint them. I did what's called a weather vane, which shows you the wind direction. I printed one of those and kind of did some customization with some rare earth magnets on it. It's on the paint table. I'm painting it right now. So that's another example of something that's like a game aid, right? Ship like card holders and things like that you can use for game aids, like little counters and things. You can also print besides the terrain. And I'll tell you, the stuff that prints flat like this, it prints really quick, and I can just crank these out. These print in 30 minutes, these little game aids. So we've got that going for that thing too. So in my estimation, what I was thinking about primarily as a businessman, I've been wanting to get one for the last couple of years, a 3D printer, and I just didn't really have the space for it yet. I didn't want to drag it in here all the time. And I just never pulled the plug on it or pulled the trigger on it. But it's going to pay for itself. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, with the ship cards, I've printed 12 ship card holders, 4 huts, some other things for my kids, and as things to make as gifts. And it's already, as far as I'm concerned, it's covered the 350 or close to it. And over the next couple months, we're going to be doing more 40K content, new 40K content. So I'm going to be printing terrain for that, which I've already found several things on Thingiverse I'm going to use. So by March, April, I'll far surpass the cost of this printer. And my estimation is I'm not using a whole lot of electricity. It's pretty electrically efficient, I would say. So it's not drawing a huge amount of amps. That's what you got to look at. Thanks, Alan, but this isn't about me. It's about you and your endeavors. That's fine, Rob. I like to spread the wealth. I'm not a selfish person. I want to give credit where credit's due. I'm a small business guy. I know. We got a Tina Montag. What do you think, guys? We got a Tina Montag pop down here to add to the stream. Do you think that's legit? Maybe. Probably not. So
I doubt it.
We'll kick that from the studio. Hey, I'm learning. So we may have to do some other type of authentication that we put just up for the Discord group. There's probably some kind of authentication code we can have with the link. And it's pretty funny. It's like getting spammed. But let's do another comment here. Big Dog. Yeah, I would still get figs from their makers without Warlord, and others would have some awesome games. I don't want to hurt them either. That's a good point. And I'm not seeing now. There's been guys that told me I can still, the Giddy prints good 28 mil figures, but I would say you're still going to get some of the lining, even on my ballerina. She's got a little bit of lining, but it's very minimal. And once I paint it and base coat it and stuff, it should be fine. Now we got Ryan coming in. Let's add Ryan. He sounds like he might be legit. Ryan. There you go. So this is part of the real problems, guys, with all this cancel.
I was just going to say, Alan,
on their hands.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Alan, that's the one thing I would never do. I would never 3D print figures. I would always buy them, from Warlord or from wherever, because I just don't agree with that. I mean, I pirate films from the internet, but I watch films on YouTube, but I would never steal from those guys, because it's it's a small community, it's a small business, so
correct, and it's going to be hard to beat those sculpts.
Yeah.
You know, the sculptor, even if they're using computer assisted what do they call it, CAD, they're doing a lot of miniatures now on CAD, but that you're still dealing with an artist, and it's going to be hard to beat the sculpts. And you'll find the guys who are doing miniatures, they're using resin printers because you're not going to get the lines, you're going to get more definition. But like I said, those resin printers are a mess, guys. A lot of chemicals, vats of chemicals. You have to have a special unit that basically uses ultraviolet light to cure the resin. It's just that technology, in my estimation, is just not there yet. And again, you're going to be dealing with print files from creators, or you're going to have to learn how to create your own prints. And that's a lot. I mean, computer assisted design. I had a friend from school. He's actually my best friend I grew up with. He's a landscape architect, and they learned CAD, and this would be back in the late 80s. And I can tell you, it's no joke. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to learn how to use that software. It can take, some of these people go to school for 2 to 3 years just to learn how to use AutoCAD. So, yeah. And like you said, we don't want to get rid of the gaming companies, cheaping out on the things. But now with this, the other point with the terrain and printing terrain is a lot of this stuff isn't out there. There's a lot of terrain sets that really don't. This way, you can really hone in on what you really need for an upcoming game, and make it specific to what your needs are. And there's no kits making this that I've ever seen.
Well, most of the terrain you see is on eBay, and it's all 3D printed anyway. So it's all stuff that guys are just 3D printing, on demand to sell to people who don't have 3D printers. So,
Right. And the fun thing about that is some of those guys are the ones who they've invested the time to learn the programs, and they've got proprietary prints, that they're building and putting on their websites or on eBay. And they're one of a kind, and it's only from that creator. They don't give you the files. They don't sell you the files. They want you to buy the prints.
Yeah.
So, and that's cool because those guys they're entrepreneurs.
Like I mentioned on the thread, I mean, I've got a 3D printed Helm's Deep, which is like it's the full Helm's Deep with all the castle parts. I mean, it's in 6mm, but it's it's a one of a kind, and it's the only place I've seen it is on that one site that I bought it from. So, it's it's a real kind of piece, because I don't know how long that guy's going to be selling that for. He may be he'll disappear and won't be selling it online.
If he's doing good, he won't. But this is the thing. I don't know. It would be interesting to get someone on the one of our podcasts in the future, who does that on the side, or maybe does it for their primary income. So yeah, I mean, it's something to think about in the future. As I mature and get closer to like I said last time, I'm never going to fully retire, but maybe something that I can do part-time and set myself up a little print farm. Oh, good. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to adjust my camera here. Yeah, there we go. So,
well, I'm close to retirement. I've spent 20 years paying into a retirement fund, and it's going to be coming due in a couple of years. So I'll probably disappear and go off painting my miniatures for the rest of my life.
Another wise investor. That's what I teach my kids when they're coming up. I said, even if it's just $20, when they were working part-time jobs, my daughter still works part-time jobs on breaks, but $20, you're not going to miss it. And these days you can take it out automatically and you never miss it. And
Exactly,
people will be
yeah.
surprised how over 20 years that starts to add up.
Yeah, yeah, it
Especially
really
when you're
does.
putting
Yeah.
it in a good fund, good funds that are maybe consumer staples or, companies that are just not going to go away, like Kraft, like Heinz, BMW, your
I
staple
was
brand,
I was in I was in there Shell Oil, so it
right?
was a really good fund. You know.
Correct. Those things, even though they may have solar and wind, you're just not going to get rid of petroleum because you just have too many things manufactured from it. So a good consumer staple to invest in for sure, and it pays dividends. So yeah, we're
Well,
good.
I mean, I worked for Shell. I worked for Shell for 20 years.
Oh,
So.
gotcha.
Yeah. So it was a contribution from my yeah. So I worked for Shell for 20 years, and yeah. So
Put it in, get dividends.
yeah.
That's a good thing. When I worked at Granger when I was in college, I worked there for 3 years. They just gave us stock, so, depending on your standing. I was a little guy, but that was one of the things as like a benefit. We got some company stock, so that's the employees had a vested interest in the company.
Yeah.
That was a great thing. So let's go on. Big Dog, let's see. Yeah, I would like. Okay, that we already seen that one. Yeah, Flames of War that have plastic minis. I wish more companies would do hard plastic 15 minute. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot out there for that.
Plastic Soldier Company do really nice 15 mils.
Right.
World War II ones. Their ancients are really bad. They're like the floppy kind of like plastic. It's terrible.
Ultracast. I did a video on it a while back. I thought that would be the thought at the time when I first read about this, and I even tried to contact the company to get a prospectus because it was so new, this Ultracast. And I thought this could be the future in terms of guys like us could buy them and come up with our own miniature line, learn AutoCAD, hire someone to do miniatures, and then you could start a little miniature company, gaming company, literally in your garage or your basement. And I had high hopes that was like a hard plastic injection, and it was supposed to be very low cost, almost like a big 3D printer, and you just
it was supposed to be low cost, and then they released the packets, and it's like 35 quid for 50 figures. I mean, it's like,
and they're bendy.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a nightmare to clean the damn things.
Yeah, I was gobsmacked when I saw the figures when they released them, and I was thinking, okay, you get a full army, and they're going to be really cheap and really, nice 15 mil full army, mixture of infantry, cavalry, artillery, everything in there with and oh man, they were terrible, really, really bad.
Well, Battlefront fell into that trap when they went to 4th edition, and they did the bendy plastic, and they quickly switched back to hard plastic because all the backbite. And I made a video about it at the time where I'd ordered the British early war for North Africa, and I was like, these things are a nightmare to get the mold lines off.
Yeah.
And, it started circulating amongst the community, and by that next year they had gone back to the hard plastic. But occasionally I think there's still those soft plastic kits floating around out there, so you have to be leery of that. If you get one, send it back and ask for the hard plastic. But yeah, that was one of those deals where and this is why Games Workshop is on top of this technology. If anybody has gotten that new Indomitus kit, which I'm busting into right now, they've got those figs are designed so that it makes it really hard to copy the miniatures, number one, because of the way the pieces fit together, and number two, they stick with that hard plastic because it's a lot more expensive to get into that technology and get good molds. So you're talking very high pressure, very high temperatures, and that's what gives them those fine details. The trick is that keeps competitors out because you've got to have a large investment to get into that. And yeah, that stuff's probably being cranked out of China probably, but those factories over in China, they're going to want a bunch of money up front because they got to maintain those machines. They got to invest in those machines themselves. So that makes the point of entry for that technology high. And it's going to help protect your brand because not a lot of companies can afford that level of model production.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the different, I've got a packet of the World War II paratroopers, British paratroopers from Plastic Soldier Company, hard plastic, and the detail on those characters, like in 50 mm, it's a world of difference between. Well, I mean, the detail isn't the real thing. It's just the fact that the quality of the figures is just completely different to those ancient figures that they did in that ultracast. Yeah,
and they're running the ads and stuff on War Games Illustrated and even on their website, and they're asking for comments, and I'm like, this stuff's garbage.
It's like chewing gum.
Right? It's like and like you said, and that's the thing when Battlefront went to plastics, because most of my Flames of War stuff, I got 6 bags of stuff out there, is mostly the resin and pewter. And I was so glad that I got in version 2 and I collected all that stuff because I still like the hard plastic stuff now. But you think when they released the plastic kits, the price was going to come in half, and it just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way I view it is you've got pewter, hard plastic, chewing gum, ultracast. That's my those are the 4 layers that I can go to.
Spanish company. I contacted them several times as I thought, if this is hard plastic and you can literally buy one of these machines for about 10 grand, I could put it in my basement. And if, not that I would, I don't want to get into that business, but I'm like, this could be like PCs, personal computers, and the printers I started my business with, when I first got into this business in the early 90s for a large national company. I couldn't go start my own lawn service unless I had little handwritten invoices and stuff, because I didn't afford a computer, and I certainly couldn't afford a printer. But by 94, 95, I could go to a local micro center and get which is what I did. I got a PC that they produced and a printer, an HP printer, for probably $600-700, and I was in business.
Yeah.
Mail merge. I created my own spreadsheets, and I was off to the races. I could have printed invoices. I could have tracking through QuickBooks for my accounting, and now I could really compete with the big companies because it made me look more professional. And I thought, when Ultracast came out, this could be the magic bullet for small, up and coming creators in the wargaming industry, and help them compete with the big guys. But they never even responded to my emails. Right? I was like, hey, I want to see what the future could be for your company. Are you taking on investors? Are you selling stock? So that tells you right there, it's a pretty non-responsive company. I got someone who's interested in giving you money.
Well, I thought the Ultracast was going to be like, going back to the good old days of, like £2-3 sets of figures, because when I grew up with the Airfix kits, the Airfix soldiers, and 1/72 scale. So I thought, okay, well, this Ultracast is going to get us back to that phase, and then they released the figures for, I think it's like £35 for a set of these figures, and geez, I couldn't believe it. That's why I was so impressed by the Warlord Epic Games, because you're getting thousands of figures for well, £70 in the UK, but then obviously they're all in strips, so it's all it's kind of like, it's a cheap way of doing it. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's still a niche there between the two, between the Epic Games and that Ultracast, which is missed, which is like a really kind of a nice scale, which is pure 15 mil, which is a huge bag of soldiers, kind of like with the rules and terrain for around 50, 60 pounds, to get everybody into the market, because, we're kind of like, we're kind of moving, out of the range of what kids used to pay, which is when I was a kid, like, you used to go into the shop and buy a box of Matchbox or Airfix for £1 or £2, and you take them home and you set up your own battles and make your own rules. And I think that's missing these days, So
Right. And that's, like we said with skirmish games on the channel, it's the gateway drug. It's a way of getting someone, you could buy that kit. And I said, when I said, hey, I can't do these small scales anymore, I just gotta stick with 28 mil, but personally, but you could literally take that epic scale and you could play on your coffee table at night while you're watching a good movie, right? The scale is small enough that you could play a pretty decent sized battle on a very small area. And Big Dog is saying that I'm hoping they do American War of Independence in epic scale. Rumor be told, that's kind of last on the list. I think the thing that you'll see next will be Napoleonics. You're going to see an epic scale Napoleonics. So you get into historical wargaming, guys. There's 3 big genres out there. The number 1 genre is World War II, by far. That's the number 1 that most historical wargamers play. Then you're going to come down. It's pretty much a tie, the statistics I've looked at, between Napoleonics and American Civil War. And oddly enough, American Civil War is very, very popular in Europe, right? In UK, Europe, that whole area of the world. So there is a fascination with our Civil War, which, hey, there's a lot in there, guys. But I will totally agree with Big Dog, man. I mean, I've got 15 mil Old Glory, American War of Independence, 2 armies I built, all pewter, custom bases, multi-based. And like I said, I think on the first podcast was, man, I've learned a lot that I thought I knew. And just watching documentaries and things and learning the uniforms and the color schemes of the uniform, etc. I have really realized with historical wargaming, one of the big facets of the game is learning the era, not just the warfare, but how people lived back then, how they traveled. If you had a weak rainstorm, people would get stuck in towns if they were traveling from one town to the other for a month. You could get stuck in a neighboring town, and you just couldn't use the roads. The roads were bogged with mud, and you start to realize that moving these armies and provisioning the armies and why they mostly fought in early summer. There was like the fighting season, right? And you can see why, because the weather would just get in the way. You couldn't move the troops around and provision the troops. So you start to see all these things and learn these things. And you certainly, learn that, German citizens were out there harassing the Jews and helping to put them in boxcars as well as the soldiers. Sad but true. It was an awful time, but it starts, and I've said this before on other videos, the government is merely a reflection of the people. It's like a giant mirror, right? So,
Alan, do you want to know why the American Civil War is so popular in the UK?
I would love to know.
Yeah, well, I was born in 1971, and I grew up in the 70s, and in every single toy shop, they had these I think probably about 1/48 scale Britain soldiers, which were American Civil War soldiers, and every single toy shop had them, and they were all you went in there and you could, and it was virtually always American Civil War soldiers. Well, they were all pre-painted, pre-based. I mean, they were called Britain's soldiers. I mean, if there's any English people on the stream, they maybe know these soldiers.
Case.
Yeah, but they were called Britons, and they came on metal bases. They came on metal bases, but they were plastic soldiers. So yeah, that's why.
Yes, and then there was a local hobby or toy store years and years ago when there were still toy stores that they had the all metal, and I've got some that I found in antique shops that are the British Royal Guard that you'd find at Buckingham. And I've just, since I was a little kid, I would go into that toy store, and it was in an outdoor mall that's since long gone, and I would just drool. You know, we'd go through there around Christmas time, and we'd go into this toy shop, and he had cases and cases of these beautifully painted metal British soldiers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have those someday. So when I find them, I stumble across single soldiers at some antique shops when we're out traveling. And when I do, I'll buy them, but they're not cheap.
No, yeah.
I'll bring them on the next podcast and show some of you guys.
Well, when I was a kid, you used to be able to buy a pack of 5 for about £5. So it was like £1 a figure. And so you'd buy like a pack of. So one week you'd buy the Confederates, next week you'd buy the Union. But they came with the flag bearer, with the flag, everything, you know. So you'd have like a kneeling troop, a firing troop, one of them holding a flag, one of them holding a sword, you know, with the cap, you know. And they were absolutely fantastic. I'll try and find some pictures to post on the thread, because that's what got me into American Civil War. You know, just basically, you know, it's like Greys versus Blue, you know, but it was in every toy shop around where I live in Manchester. You know, you go in a toy shop and you look in the you know, the toy soldiers area, and you'd find these Britons, American Civil War soldiers. So it was like fascinating, because it wasn't, and because when I was growing up, everything was Waterloo, you know, Napoleonic. So I'd buy, you know, my dad bought me the Waterloo set, you know, Airfix Waterloo set when I was a kid. But it was something different. It was something, you know, unique to us, because I didn't know any of the history. So it was like fascinating.
Yes,
so
yes, like over here. I mean, we were always fascinated by you know, the Napoleonic period, and you know, like the English Civil War and stuff. So yeah, I mean, we would get them. My great uncle, my grandfather's brother, he owned his chain of pharmacies. He was a pharmacist, and he would say, "Okay, you kids go to the toy aisle." As a Wilson Drug Store, he had a little chain of drugstores in central Kentucky, and we'd scramble over there and buy either a big bag of Americans and Germans, the gray Germans, the green Americans, and then we had the American Civil War dudes that were in a big bag. They would have the gray and the blue, and they had, you know, had little cannons, and they had the dudes on the horses. But we'd take those back to the farm and play with that stuff for hours and hours. You know, hey, did you get your chores done? But we're playing army men in the barn. You know, we'd set them up and skip rocks. We got to the point where we were using marbles. He also sold marbles in his pharmacy, so we'd get a big bag of marbles. We'd use those like little cannonballs. So yeah, I mean, I was
the same with the Waterloo. We used to, like, you know, my friends, we'd set them up. We'd get our big, because everyone had a box of the Waterloo, the big. It was a huge box. It was like 300 figures. So we'd find somebody's house in the front room, and then we spent hours like lining up our firing lines. You know, oh god, and literally, like, you know, the mum would walk in. One of the mums would walk in and like, "What the hell are you doing out of that front room?" You know, and it's like recreating virtually 1-to-1, like the Battle of Waterloo on the front, you know, in the front room.
Exactly. And that was the simple times when, you know, these days, I don't know that they don't even let their little kids these days play with army soldiers, because they're like, oh, that's war. I don't know, man. And then, of course, like we talked about last time, then you have Star Wars comes out, and then they finally came out with the whole line of action figures, which I have out here in a separate display case. I've have
Oh yeah,
some
I've
of
got a full
mine
set.
that I had since I was 12.
Yeah, I've got
Boba Fett, you know.
I've got a full set of every Star Wars figure that was released, and I put them up. They literally, I've kept them in a room, and I've kept them in. I actually, about 10 years ago, I wrapped them all in cellophane. I thought, you never know, and I've just. But I'm not going to sell them because it's just like my childhood, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I bought a bunch for my son growing up, and he was too busy playing video games, so I ended up just confiscating them and putting them in with my collection. But so I've got a nice collection out there, and I've even got the Princess Leia in the slave costume action figure. And,
oh right, okay. That wasn't in the original series, was it? No,
but I saw that. I was scanning eBay, and I turned into a collector at that point. So I built up a nice little collection of those, and I cherish them. And I think I look in the very back, along the back of the display case, I have all of my originals lined up, and they're discolored, especially the stormtroopers, but they didn't have any arms. They were all stiff. But I think the hours and hours my neighbor friends and I played on, in Central Ohio, we got the crappy weather and stuff, and you'd be stuck inside, and we would play Star Wars action figures for hours. And what the kids video games.
Yeah, no, I've got my favorite figure of all of them is the Emperor Palpatine from Return of the Jedi, which I had to send away for. So I don't know if you remember, when you got the cards, you had to collect the name plaques and send them away. So I sent 10 away to get the Emperor Palpatine, and that's my favorite figure of all of them, because there was no other way of getting that figure in the UK. So
same with Boba Fett.
And Admiral Akbar, I just had to do that for Admiral Akbar as well. Collecting. I had to collect a load of figures to get the name thingy. Jeez, yeah. I've still got my original Millennium Falcon. It's in the loft. I've just put it up there,
I keep looking for one on eBay. I found one probably a month ago. They wanted $400 for it. Maybe it was $700.
Right.
I had one. I had a TIE fighter, and somewhere along the lines, I have a handful of figs that made it somehow that I still had my hands on through school and everything. I know what it was. I was away at school in University of Minnesota, and I came home. My parents moved to another house, and she says, "We had a big garage sale before we moved." And I said, "Yeah, where's my comic collection?" I had like 4 boxes of comics and, plastic sleeves. I had my Star Wars stuff in various boxes down in the basement. "Oh, well, I didn't know you still wanted that stuff. I sold it at the garage sale."
Oh, no.
And I'm like, "Well, I bet somebody cleaned up." She said, "Yeah, I think I sold those comics for like $20. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Jeez.
It was one of those things where, what are you going to do? Mom didn't know. I think they were up in the attic, and I came home and said, "Hey, where's my comic books?" "Oh yeah, we sold them in a garage sale." So yeah, don't do that to your kids, folks.
I actually tell you, Alan, I've all my comics that I bagged them up same time as my Star Wars figures. So I've got the first run Blade Runner comic book, which I bought when I was a nipper, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. I've got that, and Octopussy, and I've got loads of comics that I just bagged up, and I've just left them all in. I know, and I put them all, stored them away in a cupboard. I thought, never mind. But I mean, the thing is, I don't really want to sell them. It's just kind of part of my childhood. So it's, I don't want to sell them or anything. I just want to keep them safe. So, and I've got the original Alien comic graphic novel. So yeah.
All highly collectible, and one of the things I talked about on a previous video, which is one of the tasks I have not done yet this winter, but I really do need to sit down and start making a catalog. I'm just going to use a binder. I'm going to go down through all of my stuff that I've collected, including all my wargaming stuff. And I need to start placing some sort of a value on what this stuff is worth, because one of these days I'm going to croak and this stuff's going to go to some garage sale.
Yeah, for a couple of dollars or something. Yeah.
For, a fraction of what it's really worth.
Yeah,
now, my son's pretty savvy. He knows I've got a lot of nice stuff that I've built and painted over the years. So I don't think that will happen, but I'm like, look, this is like an asset as far as I'm concerned, a lot of these things. And I tell young people getting into this hobby, hey, learn how to paint good as best as you can, collect stuff. I even, on the bottom of my custom bases, even on my print stuff, I put my initials, the date that I produced it or completed it, and personalize it that way, so that it's hopefully in the future will make it collectible. If my son doesn't want to keep all this stuff, he can take that money and put it in a mutual fund.
Yeah.
As long as it's going somewhere where it's going to be used, and someone say, "Oh wow, somebody really put a lot of care into this," and I'm
as long as it's appreciated, that's the main thing. That's the way I view it.
That's right. We got Gaslight Studios in the house. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you, sir. I really like that that moniker, the profile picture. That's really nice. I loved looking at, when I was studying the stuff from my American War of Independence, the Queen's Rangers. Oh, I forget what series it was we watched. It's on the tip of my tongue, but
I know the one you mean. It's
really good series.
The spy one.
Yes,
it was a spy one. Yeah.
Yes,
it's good series.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a great series I watched with my wife, and that's when I really got into the whole Queen's Rangers. I have some Queen's Rangers I built and painted, and then just learning. It's American War of Independence Encyclopedia, and learning about the uniforms and their different allies that they had. Such a rich history, like Last of the Mohicans. That whole era of American history is really ripe for more film production, because there's so many stories that could be told. The one that's featured in the Tecumseh movie is a local legend, a settler whose name escapes me right now, but dang it, Simon Kenton. Now, for Boy Scouts here in our council here in Ohio, when I was a scout leader and my son was in Scouts, we were the Simon Kenton Council. Now, Simon Kenton appears in the Tecumseh outdoor drama here in Chillicothe, Ohio. It was one of the summer homes of the Shawnee Indians. His story is fascinating. Now, this guy had a crush on his childhood sweetheart, and this was in what would have been Virginia at the time. It's now West Virginia. And the story goes that old Simon Kenton, he had him a few drinks of the local shine, and went to a local dance, and his girl was dancing with this guy, and she ended up becoming betrothed to him and was going to marry this chap. And Simon, he got himself a little liquored up, and he decided he was going to go down to the local dance hall, which was probably a local barn, and he was going to fight this guy. Well, he did. He fought this guy and knocked him cold, knocked him out. He was flat on his face, and Simon thought he had killed the guy. So the next morning, he gathered up his things and left his little town for Ohio country, right? It was a frontier. Well, he was gone for years and years, and he made his living as a trapper and claimed a lot of land in Kentucky and Ohio. He later became a miller. Fascinating story. I may run over here and get, it's out on my bookshelf. I can't leave the office, but I'll bring it to the next podcast. The book that he is featured as a main character. He ran the gauntlet even. He was captured by the Indians. Does anyone out there know what the gauntlet is? The gauntlet. That's where the Indians would capture you, and they would get all the warriors in the village in 2 lines, and they would have willow switches, like willow branches, and you would have to run down the middle between both the lines of warriors, and they would hit you like a whip. And if you could survive that running the gauntlet, they adopted you into the tribe, and they treated you like you were royalty because you were that tough. Well, he survived the gauntlet and was inaugurated into the Shawnee tribe in Chillicothe. Now, here's the punchline of the story. Years later, after Simon had claimed hundreds of acres of land, he had fought the Indians, he had done all these things because he had to leave his home because he thought he killed a man. Well, he come to find out he ran into someone from his town years and years later, somewhere in the Ohio frontier, and they said, "Oh, he didn't die. You just knocked him out." Right? So here, this whole time, he was on the run, essentially, surviving in the wild, and he didn't kill the guy he thought he killed. I always thought that's a great story. So there's all kinds of stuff like that from that era that could make amazing movies, and we're stuck with Marvel comic movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, enough for the comic book heroes. I mean, The Last of Mohicans. That film, I love that film so much. I mean, the soundtracking is amazing, like, and the battle scenes when the British get attacked, and ambushed, and one of the funny thing is the one, I think it's the guy who gets like burnt at the stake. He's from Manchester. He's a Manchester actor, and he ended up on Coronation Street, which is our local soap opera, in Manchester. But yeah, that was a great film. And it's rich. I mean, it's rich for history. That war lasted for like 10 years. The French Indian Wars. So there's so much stuff in there.
So while you're talking there, I'm totally, like I said, you and I are cut from the same cloth. I pulled it up. The author is Alan Eckert, and he has a series of frontiers books that are all based on the frontier before most white men crossed the Mississippi River. So we're talking old Pennsylvania, old Ohio, old Michigan, old Kentucky, before they were even technically even territories, just barely territories.
Yeah.
The book that I'm referring to, that the Tecumseh play is based on, is called The Frontiersman. So if you guys ever want to pull that up, Amazon has it for $35. They also have The Wilderness War that I've read that's more based on the Iroquois Nation. So we're talking Michigan, we're talking the Great Lakes region. Very good books. These are all stories that were based on tales that he had heard passed down through the years. He was a history professor, and he started putting these tales together, and he wove them into these novels. And they, like I said, they eventually made 2 different outdoor dramas here in Ohio: Blue Jacket, which they don't do anymore, and Tecumseh. Now, Tecumseh is famous because he formed the first real Indian Confederation to get all of the tribes to work together to fight the intrusion of the white settlers into their hunting lands. Now, back then, Kentucky was an area that was primarily used just for hunting. The Indians believed it was haunted. That whole region was haunted, and they didn't like to hunt. They did not hunt past dark, right? So they would go down from the Ohio territory down into the Kentucky territory, Kentucky, and hunt. It was a huge hunting ground for them. Back then, there was buffalo still, there was mountain lions, there were grizzly bears, black bears, and that's something that had always intrigued me with that era of history, is what was making these Indians think that entire region of the country was haunted. It's kind of interesting, since they didn't have a written language, and They were driven west. There wasn't a lot of stories passed down. So yeah, anybody that might know about that, why did the Indians think Kentucky was haunted? That's my homeland. I was born in Winchester, Kentucky, which is right outside of Lexington and 15 miles from Fort Boonesboro, which my ancestors came up through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. Yes. Yes.
The other thing I find interesting about that period, Alan, is the way the Indians aligned themselves between the French and the British. And it was along tribal kind of, tribal rivalries, which, another thing that the left wing kind of don't want to talk about, which is that, they basically were fighting amongst each other, which...
Well, that's been sorely missed in Indian history. They think, well, they were just everyone. The Indians were just they got along with each other, and they were just that was like a utopia. The reality is, I live in Delaware, Ohio. It's named after the Delaware Indians. So in this area along the Great Olentangy River, there's the Scioto River that converged down in Columbus, which is the sacred place for the Indians. So I do know a little bit about Indians, and one of the things that I've learned over the years is they fought each other and over the same things we fight over: hunting rights, land. So the Shawnee were more further south of here. We did have some Shawnee up around this area that I live, and it was mostly Delaware and Mingo. They were closely allied with Iroquois. They spoke Iroquois, a derivative of Iroquois. And they were usually considered the jerks of the Indians. Their whole bag was they would let the Shawnee grow squash and corn and harvest fish and dry fish, and they'd have dry venison for the winter. And the Delawares would go right around September, October, and raid the Shawnee villages and take their stuff because they didn't want to have to, spend the whole summer harvesting fish and making, venison jerky and things like that. They would go.
Sounds very familiar.
Correct. So you try to talk to some of these young folk and you say, hey, and that's what the Frontiersman really points out. It was. They didn't play, man. If you're a white guy and they caught you trapping on their hunting lands, and that's what happened to Simon Kenton. He got captured finally, and he was also big in Kentucky. He was close friends with Daniel Boone, who my relatives traveled through the Cumberland Gap with, as I said, and at one point, Fort Boonesboro was attacked by the Shawnee, and the Shawnee captured some of the townspeople there in the fort on the assault, and two of the captors were Daniel Boone's daughters, and the Shawnee carried them north up across the Ohio River and took them back to Chillicothe as captives. And Simon Kenton, Daniel Boone, and another group of the men from the fort the next day set off after them and followed their trail and followed them back up. And they eventually negotiated their release. And there's tales also of young girls being captured by the Indians through various settlements over those years and were taken back to Indian camps. And they were basically incorporated in with the tribe. And so just like I said, so many stories, and there's a lot of good wargaming games out there that feature what is it? Flintlock. I forget some of the names. One of the ones I'm working with right now, it's a skirmish style game, is Forager. Can certainly be centered around that. It's you could have Indians, you could have bands of Indians, you can build a small fort or whatever you want to do, a settlement, just like from Last of the Mohicans, and do these nice little scenario games based on the old frontier. And of course, you get to the late 1800s, mid and late 1800s. Now we're dealing with the west of the Mississippi River, that was the new frontier, and that's where you run into the Sioux and the other tribes out there that weren't too happy with people coming west. And it's the same type of thing, just in a different environment. Now, like I said, this area where I live is beautiful forests. Now, we'd have some beautiful farmland, but beautiful alluvian forests. Alluvian just means that some of these forests my wife and I have hiked in, they're untouched. They have not ever been harvested for timber, and the trees are huge. And I can just imagine the whole state used to look like that. It was just a vast forest, like in Lord of the Rings, right? Fangorn Forest. I mean, it was probably like that.
That's really one of the areas that I think is really missing at the moment, is that area you talked about. So in 1/72 scale, I've got an entire area. It's a box set, which is the last Mohicans. Comes with forts with.
Big Dog now. He has a comment about why did the Ohio Indians, the Shawnee in particular, did not like much in Kentucky other than hunting. And here we go. Bigfoot. There are many legends in Native history about Bigfoot. Now, here's another story that ties in with that, Big Dog. Fort Ancient, it's outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a complex that the Indians built up on a ridge overlooking the Miami River, the Little Miami River. Of course, we had the Miami Indians here. They were basically Shawnee. There was all kinds of tales that I had heard when I went to these parks and listened to the rangers, that the way that this complex was built was for ceremonial purposes, but it was also clear to me, and I asked, this looks very defensive. Fort Ancient, Cincinnati, Ohio. Look it up. I'm sure there's a ton of information out there about it. High up on a bluff, very steep, hard to attack. And he said, well, there are rumors and there are stories that there were giants, like large, really large people. They were rumored to be 9, 10, 12 feet tall. And the Indians would fight these dudes. Now, they say there were some skeletons found on some of these archaeological digs over the years around eastern United States in the woodlands areas. And they have all been taken to the Smithsonian, and they've kind of been hidden away, and no one really wants to talk about it because it kind of throws a wrench into their timeline and the type of people that lived around here. So that's out there, man. You could say they're Bigfoots, and I'm wondering, were they like hang-ons? Were these like the dying Neanderthals? Were these the ancients, that were still lingering around? And they would bully on the Indians and come take their food and stuff, maybe. Who knows? But that's pretty intriguing. Like I said, there's a whole ocean of future movies that could be made on these kinds of things out there. So if you're a young writer and you want to be a screenwriter, there's some future material for you. Look and read at the Frontiersman. You could turn that one book into 3 movies easily. Another comment here. I live next to the Susquehanna River, where the Iroquois wiped out the last of that tribe. It was 1600 or so, and the Susquehanna Indians had cannon from Dutch traders. Interesting. That is very interesting. And you come to find, too, that they had vast city complexes, the American Indians, the North American Indians. Similar pyramids, similar to what the South Americans had built. So, guys, there's a lot that the archaeologists and the scientists. I watched in the paint booth the other day. I was painting and had a documentary on about this. It was basically a lecture series from the University of Texas, was talking about these vast cities where they had, tens of thousands of people inhabited them, outside of St. Louis along the Mississippi River. There's just so much we don't know that went on. And that's another, we got to tie it back into wargaming. There's a lot of great wargaming skirmish gaming we can do as wargamers, using the Indians, the French and Indian War. I can't at the top of my head, I can't think of what some of these games, something Tomahawks, and anybody help me out on that. There's a couple of good game systems out there that you can game this period. So here's another comment. Mike Tyke, welcome to the chat, Mike. For sure, I mean, tribes would purposely poison other tribes' water supplies, kill game just for the sake of denying it to the other tribe. And they would do that by taking game that they would kill. They would let it get rancid, and they would put it upstream from a neighbor village and hence contaminate the water. And would be similar to something like cholera. You'd basically get really bad diarrhea and you would die of dehydration, right? So yeah, I've always been fascinated with this period living in the area, and I grew up in Kentucky and obviously Ohio, and going to the museums and things over the years. The Ohio Historical Society that we have here, they had actual skeletal remains of some of the Indians that they had excavated from some of the Indian mounds. We've got tons of Indian mounds around here. There's the Serpent Mound. There's a ton of them. I've taken the scouts to over the years when my son was younger, with my wife and I's travels and our cycling adventures. We stop at a lot of these places, and it's just fascinating. Yeah. So anybody out there gaming this period? The what would they called the frontier back then was just west of the Alleghenies, between the Alleghenies and the Mississippi River. You get your David Bowies. David Bowies? I don't think it was David Bowie's. Colonel Bowie or Captain Bowie. You had Daniel Boone. You had Simon Kenton, right? A lot of fun stuff going on back then that we could game. Jerry Jackson, Shawnee Point. Where is Shawnee Point? Now I'm just north of Chillicothe. Now Chillicothe to the Shawnee meant where they were camping currently. That was around that area. That was one of their summer camps. You got Mount Sugarloaf, they call it. It's beautiful down there in southern Ohio. You're just getting into the foothills of the Allegheny. So you have beautiful rolling hills, thick, lush forests. And we had a rich Indian history in that area. Rich Indian history. Going all the way back to, they called them the Mound Builders, the Mississippians. Those will be the terms that you hear. Yep, muskets and tomahawk. Thank you, Mike. Mike Tyke, thank you. Muskets and tomahawks. I've seen it. Featured in War Games Illustrated, I think a couple years ago. It was really popular. I got another comment. Proxy Models. Thanks for coming to the chat today, Proxy Models. Look up the Maynox or Maydocs, Irish settlers who were in the U.S. long before Columbus and went native. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's, in the Vikings and Eric the Red and up in Greenland, and they filtered down. There's all kinds of stories. But yeah, one that really stands out to me since I was a young man, hearing the stories of these giants. What would have been considered giants to Indians, right? If they were 7-8 foot tall, they would have probably thought they were giants. And with the hair and stuff, there's been speculation that those were the remnants of ancient Neanderthals that just had not died out yet. And you got to consider, guys, here in Ohio, the Ohio Valley, there was buffalo running loose, right? A lot of the interstates and a lot of the state highways here in Ohio and in Kentucky were once buffalo trails, right? They would move north and south based on the weather and to graze in the grazing areas. And they would create these swaths of migratory trails that the Indians would use, of course. And later when the settlers came, they said, hey, why don't we just use these as our roads? Right? So we're still talking about over here on the chat. Mythic Battles, and the endless debate, which is the best scale to game in. I would honestly say, guys, the best scale is whatever scale is good for you. There was a conversation earlier in the chat that the gaming companies are not matching the scales, and we talked about that on when the Epic Battles was first introduced about a month ago. It's called proprietary scales, and they're wanting you to stay with them. You get your miniatures from them, you play with their rules. All the firing ranges, the marching, the movements are all based on their own proprietary scale. You're seeing it with Games Workshop with 40K, Age of Sigmar, the new 8th edition, which I just bought the Indominus set a couple months back. I'm just now getting to it. Yeah, so they made them, what do you call it, heroic scale. Same kind of thing. Big Chap, no problem, man. Come back in whenever you can, and we'll see you. If you don't come back today, we'll see you on the next. See you on the next podcast, my friend, and be well. Yeah, Big Dog. Good to see you again, Big Dog. You have a great weekend, man. Happy Valentine's Day. We'll see you next time. All right, we still got quite a few people in the room. Anybody else want to bring up a random topic? Proxy models, 15 millimeter, 40K is taking off. It is nice. Wasn't that 6 millimeter? Or are they doing 15 millimeter now too? Because I have a friend, I thought he said 6 millimeter. Maybe it was 10 millimeter. Mike Tyke, good night, my friend. You have a happy Valentine's Day. And we'll see you on the next chat. Yeah, so interesting. I understand the allure of small scale. Now, Little Wars TV, who I'm aligned with, and I'm a supporter of financially and spiritually, they like the 6 mil. It's just not my cup of tea. Oh, Mike, you're back. Alan, have you played the rules yet for the Black Seas game? The little ships are so cool. Yes, I was playtesting them yesterday, getting ready for the game coming up on the 20th. I have only played it one time here in the gaming hall. A friend brought his ships over, so that's what sold me. I said, I've got to get into this game. It's one of my core games. First, the ships are amazing. They're really not too bad. They're intimidating at first, and once you get into the paint schemes, and the abbreviated rigging that I went over in my last video, it's not bad at all, and they look so cool. And the rules are great. I've been printing some extra game aids on my new printer for it yesterday and today. I would highly recommend it. That's a low cost entry kit. It comes with your book. It comes with 9 ships. But of course, like I always do, guys, I've got more stuff coming Monday. I've got some first rates. I got 3 third rates coming. I've got 2 British first rates, 2 French first rates. What else? Some more 10-sided dice. So I can play bigger games. Now, the plan is, if any of you guys are over on my Discord, get on my Discord, guys. A lot going on over there. I posted how I was playtesting last night. I put up a snap watching my Nerdrotic on YouTube. And I decided, I made an executive decision. I said, I have this 12-foot table and I have a 6x4 mat. I'm going to need to get another 6x4 mat so we can have 12-foot long ship battles with like 3v3 players. And I'm going to do the same mat. I'm Monday morning getting on Cigar Box gaming mats, which is in Lithuania. Now, the reason I'm going there, guys, yes, I have to order something from Lithuania. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for something to get here. But they do the double-sided mats, and I want to do another mat. I want to do the same mat. I want to do the Caribbean Sea on one side and Starfield on the other, because another thing we're bringing to the channel by the end of this year, we're playing X-Wing, and they have a new supplement for X-Wing, which allows you to have large battles with X-Wing. So again, we could do 2v2 players, 3v3 players here in the studio on a 12-foot by roughly 5-foot board table. So it's totally doable, especially next year, 2022, on the buy list, on the list for content is Star Wars Armada. So fans of Armada, it's coming to the channel. Stay tuned. What else we have here? Dreadfleet. Yes, I know that's getting popular. It's not on my radar right now. It looks like it's a good thing. A lot of the ship games, even you're starting to see with Cruel Seas, you're starting to see the World War II ship games. I'm personally not a big fan of the models, but there's other model manufacturers out there that make World War II battleships and carriers and things that you can purchase. There's plenty of it out there. Now that I have a 3D printer, any future games like that, I'll probably just print the ships. I'm not doing that right now with Black Seas. I'm just purchasing the kits. Right. Now, this is a great point, Mike, and I said this to Philip, the last game we played here, Romans v. Barbarians, and that is the problem we have now in my gaming area, in the area I've created for gaming, a specific area just for gaming, is we have so many things we want to do in so little time. Right now, I'm looking at doing 10 or 11 group games a year here in the gaming hall. I would love to double that, but is that realistic? It's hard to get everyone together for a monthly game. So yeah, that's a great point, Mike. I mean, you have to really pick and choose, and that comes down to the individual, what you're attracted to. The big thing is, look, I'm essentially semi-retired. I've had a successful business for 30 years. So I have the disposable income. I can dabble into these things. But you young guys out there, just, don't bite off more than you can chew. That's what's so great about these skirmish games, Star Wars Legion, Black Seas. You can just buy the starter box, and that's all you would really need to play. It's $56. It comes with everything you need, essentially. Just take it easy. It's easy to get in over your head with this stuff. And next thing you know, you can't pay the rent. Right. So, it sounds like a good time. It is a good time. The thing that the video games, even though you can communicate with people via headphones, trust me, I've been there, done that with my son. And I had that whole stage where I was playing Call of Duty, etc., Halo, all that stuff I've done. I even had on this system back here at one time, we were big into World of Tanks and getting into the group games. You just don't have the face-to-face contact and the camaraderie. And then, of course, my wife makes us great food. We've got a flat screen where we can put movies on, and it's just the banter, the talk, and having that friendship aspect that's really special. I know there's a lot of guys out there. You're hearing this and you're thinking, God, I wish I could go game again, especially these UK guys. Kevin McElvain, painting my Fallschirmjäger units for Flames of War. Been there, done that, my friend. It's a great time. Enjoy every minute of it. I have 6 Battlefront Flames of War bags full of Flames of War stuff. It's pretty simple. Back in the day, I don't know, 03, 04, 05, 06, we had an arms race going on in my house for weekend games. McElvain, I need to get me a 3D printer. That is really our main topic today. We've kind of gone into that. Watch the replay if you didn't get a chance to. Kevin, we went into a lot of 3D prints. I'm a beginner also. I highly recommend it. And I highly recommend my Giddy X Maker. US cost is $350. The advantage is it's a great printer. It just prints and prints and prints. And you have everything you need in a box. In 30 minutes, I was printing ship cards for my future Black Seas game. Like that. Leveled the bed one time. I checked the level of the bed the other day just for shits and giggles. It was still perfectly level. It was right where it needed to be. And having zero problems, guys. The only problem I've had is minor issues with prints, but that was based on the file from Thingiverse. And it was very minor. This thing is an absolute workhorse. It even came with a stick of a glue stick, right? So it has everything you need right out of the box. John has the third rates on the painting table for Black Seas. Yes, John, mine will be here Monday. It's like crack. It's like an addiction, right? I just got that starter set. And next thing you know, I'm ordering first rates and third rates. And I'm like, I can't have this game next Saturday, week from this Saturday, and not have some of the big boys on the table, right? I can't just have these little frigates and brigs, right? We got to have some third rates and some first rates. So that's probably where I'll draw the line. I think that'll be plenty of ships for me to play for years. I'm going to roll this in as one of my core games. And we're going to probably end up somewhere between 5 and 10 games here in the studio, which will become core games. These are the games I play frequently, and we will play, on a cycle here in the gaming hall. And like I said, there's going to be some new stuff next year. Saga's on the list, right? I want to do more skirmish gaming. American Civil War 28 millimeter. Star Wars Armada is on the list. So yeah, so I'm going to be adding some things. And I will probably build on some of my Hail Caesar armies. I definitely want to do in the future, maybe a couple of years, I want to do an Egyptian army. I've always wanted to do an Egyptian army. Those chariots are badass. If you look at the stats on those chariots and Hail Caesar. Simon Drury, thanks for coming to the chat today, Simon. Do like the looks of Heart of Leviathan ships from Image Studios. Not heard of that. I would like to check that out. Only available in the US, though, and I'm in the UK. Interesting. Yeah, something to check out, guys. Now, one of the things I wanted to do on the printer here is probably not going to make it before this upcoming game, but I do want to print my oh dang it, Nemo, my Nemo ship. That's definitely on my list. There was a guy on one of the groups I used to be in on Facebook. He made one for Black Seas on his 3D printer, and I'm going to look up that file and make it, because I thought, man, that would be badass to have in a Black Seas game, as well as like the giant squid, that kind of stuff. Mike Tyke, I did that same thing with Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. Was just going to get the core rules and 2 sets of minis. Ended up getting the entire first wave, plus terrain, plus 3D printed stuff. Right. Yeah, I mean, guys, we're in a hobby that it's like a video game. You buy it. You may buy some upgrades, whatever. Of course, we all know World of Tanks. You get sucked into that gold, the gold ammo and all this nonsense. And they end up just sucking you dry. But yeah, it's gamer crack. It's gamer crack. And yeah, I mean, you got to keep an eye on that. I look at it this way, guys. It should be an encouragement for you to propel yourself forward and make more money in whatever field you're in. Get more training, get more education, so you can make more money. Then you can buy more toys, right? That's the way to attack that problem, right? You either shrink your spending or you have to increase your income. There's only 2 choices. right? I have a hard time just dipping my toe in a game. I end up being a completionist and buying way too much. OCD, that's what it's called. Obsessive compulsive disorder. Yes. Which can be a good thing. It can be a factor of good. Yes, perfect logic. This is what we're dealing with. You just have to keep things in perspective. Right now, it is a very productive hobby, and I've said on many of my videos, and it's kind of one of my monikers is we have a hobby. It's like a jewel, right? It's multifaceted. It's a deep hobby, especially the historical side of things. We just were speaking about the frontier, the Allegheny, the Appalachian frontier period. It's so deep. A lot to learn. The French and Indian Wars. Oh, there you go. Now then you get into these the more obscure gaming, which I want to do stuff like this, some more of the steampunk stuff in the future. I've always been attracted to that. Playing Dracula's America, not a bad game, or not a bad skirmish game. Yeah, I mean, there's the skirmish games. It's so deep. Like I said, coming up to the channel here in about 3 or 4 months on the list and on the schedule is Forager, which is a Napoleonic era skirmish games, Stand 2 games in the UK, and all coming up with all kinds of scenarios for that. You make me want to just go buy another platoon right now. I've been told I'm a very good salesperson. We all have to sell ourselves, guys, in some degree. And I've been pretty fortunate with my business. And I certainly will promote my business and services I can provide. So yeah, don't forget that. Yeah, don't be afraid to promote yourself. Don't be afraid to reach higher, right? Keep reaching higher as much as you can. I'm probably at the top of my field, the top of the pay, the top of my setup that I have. But again, this is after 30 years. You just try every year to make it a little better, right? Don't forget to save, guys. Dave and I were just talking before he left the room. He was a Shell oil guy, and he was a saver and investor, and you can retire early. Not that I will ever really retire. I'll always do something, but you'd be surprised if you're 22 and you just have $20 a month snatched and put into an IRA, and you put it in some nice funds. By the time you're 40, 50 years old, you'll be sitting on a nice little nugget. And it's fun. Learning to invest is fun, guys. Take charge of your finances. Yeah, ETFs. There's the nomenclature for today. Look that up. ETF. All right, find out what that is. I highly recommend them. Dividend. There's the other word for the day. Dividends. Not singular, plural. Dividends. Pub battles. You know, I think I have heard of pub battles. I think on one of the Wargames Illustrated episodes, or Wargames Illustrated magazines. Please tell us, what is pub battles? All right, we're 5:44 Eastern Standard Time here in Central Ohio. We're going to take this chat up to 6 p.m. I'm looking forward to those homemade nachos my wife's making for Friday night Friday night movie night. So yeah, homemade nachos. Got us a couple of really nice filet mignons and giant baked potatoes for Valentine's Day. Hope you all have a good Valentine's Day with your sweetheart. All right, we're fizzling out here, guys. We're down to 4. We're probably going to call this our wrap on this edition of Wargamer Talk. I want to thank everybody for coming in today. Just look for the invites and the future announcements. I'm going to work hard to do these at least once a week, probably on a Friday or Saturday afternoons. I like the start time at 4. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's been a great show. We've had a lot of great topics brought up, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys all next time. Please get on over to my Discord group, Alan Smith Hobby and War Games. All of my videos now we have in the description below a link to Discord. Get over there. Feel free to make posts of projects you're working on, tidbits of information, anything you really want to talk about wargaming related, get over there. And if you don't like Google, you don't like their business model and their politics, don't forget that I'm also posting on Rumble. The interesting thing about Rumble, guys, is there's no commercials and you can just watch the videos 1080p. When you subscribe to a channel, as you scroll through the videos, there'll be little box ads between, but they're not like what YouTube is, where you actually have videos. Now, I'm not monetized yet, but I'm very close to being monetized. So there's that. So get on over to Rumble if you want to get on to Rumble, and definitely get on over to Discord. And I'll see you next time. Ciao. And we're going to phase out here. We're going to phase out